Hi V, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tony?
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for taking the time to join me on this little podcast.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so for those of you that might not know, Vee Caron, or as the Americans call her, Vee Caron, is a technical account manager at Simply PHP. I like to call her also account manager, project manager, project coordinator, all of that good stuff. And so because I want to know about your routine working from home now. I want to know how you're succeeding so well in managing all these team members from home. But first, listen, you're a millennial, right? You're part of the millennial generation.
Born in the 90s.
Okay, so how do you feel? How do you feel about what's going on right now?
I must say that now it's kind of part of the routine, and I've kind of come to the acceptance phase. At the beginning, I'm someone that's, filled with energy. I go to the gym every day, and I go to work, and I go see friends, and, I go running, I do my yoga and all of that. So I'm super, super busy. So at first it was really hard because it was a drastic change to my routine. But so blessed, we are in the wonderful tech industry, which means that we're still working. And, I've worked from home in the past before, so I was kind of, used to it. However, managing a big team was totally new to me. So
Okay,
what
wait a second. Wait
yeah,
a second, though. I'm talking about V, the person.
yeah, okay.
Let's not even talk about business yet.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
talking
cool.
about you.
Yeah, yeah.
How are you feeling about everything that's happened? How did you, like? Were you in denial at the beginning? Were you like how are you as far as that?
Well, I was in denial a little bit at the beginning, and as I was saying, I'm kind of now 6 weeks in. I'm in the acceptance phase. Um, and in all honesty, I must say last week was really hard for me because, starting to miss mom and missing my friends and, living with my boyfriend also. And we live in a tiny downtown apartment with no balcony. So that's another challenge also. So, so as a whole, it's been a great challenge. But with whatever else is going on, it was stressing me out a lot. And I think that my stress was coming from me reading the news every hour, every like listening to podcasts and just like about it and just try to find a solution because I like to control things. And this is something that I cannot
Yeah.
control. So,
Mhm.
so it was stressing me out. But since I've kind of like stepped back on the news and just kind of just listening to my podcast in the morning, just to kind of keep me updated as to what's going on, and then after just shutting it down and just take it as it comes. So yeah.
Are you so you mentioned missing your mom? So you've really so you haven't seen your mom since this whole time, since this whole episode has began, right? So you've really followed the rules properly. You and your boyfriend are staying put in your apartment.
Yes, yes. So we are not leaving our house for, unnecessary travel. So if we're craving an ice cream, there's no ice cream,
Okay.
So we're just gonna buy ice cream next time that we go to the grocery store. So really, like I at the beginning, I was going out for runs early in the morning. But I must say that now I'm a little bit more reluctant since, the volume, like the amount of people that are infected in Montreal has kind of gone up dramatically as well in the
Mhm.
past weeks. So just touching things, and I just prefer staying home and like not putting myself at risk. So my boyfriend seems to be a little bit more courageous than I. So he just goes to the supermarket, buy our groceries for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then comes home, and we're kind of living the real confinement. So we're staying home in our tiny downtown apartment and living our lives.
Okay. So your boyfriend's also working from home, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how now we can transition a little bit into how you're making it happen, because this is interesting, because I know a lot of people that are not making it happen. They're working from home. They're a disaster. They're not able to produce. You are. So take me through, first of all. So you're in a small apartment, 2 people. Do you each have your own corners? Is he like at one end of the apartment, you're at the other? Are you like telling each other to be quiet? Like what's going on
So we're lucky enough that, we have a room, because so I'm in the living room / dining room, and then he's in the bedroom. So he's got his whole setup in the bedroom. So we have a door that's kind of
so a separate location. Okay.
Exactly. And it's really hard for him, I think, because his industry is really affected, which is hospitality. So he's not, all of his accounts and all of that, all restaurants and bars, which he doesn't really,
he's in the hospitality. So
yeah,
restaurants, bars. Okay. What kind of, he does promotion of beverages or something?
Yeah, no, he's the Jägermeister ambassador. So, he goes around, everywhere in Quebec, and just kind of help the other, alcohol reps on, how to increase their sales and all of that. So at the moment, it's very hard because, he can only promote the brand so much being confined in an apartment. But he's busy, but he's not as busy as I am. So he comes out and he just like looks at me, whether if I have a smile on my face or if I'm really focused, and he's just like, is this a good time to talk? Or like, he's always, willing to have a conversation, but I have to keep in the zone,
Okay. So after 6 weeks of confinement together, what about him is bothering you the most? His blinking?
No.
Just kidding.
The way he chews food. I'm just like, it's so loud.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fix that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're gonna do it, but you're gonna have to fix that. That's great. Look, it's great that you're able to at least have 2 separated workstations, and give my best to him too, because it can't be that easy in the hospitality industry right now, but he seems to be making it happen. So that's great.
Thank you.
So tell me now, because I know you, because you and I work hand in hand together. Our desks are not far from each other at the office. I think a big part of your management style is getting up, going to talk to the programmers, giving them a pat on the back. This is the way that you influence people, right? So how do you find it working from home now? And first, let me know, are you using Slack often, the calling? Are you using Zoom? So first of all, let me know what kind of tools you're using, because I want someone to, perhaps learn from you what kind of tools you're using. And if that is problematic, being that you have such an outgoing, energetic personality that's used to being in the office surrounded by 40, 50 people. So how's that going? Start with the tools, if you don't mind.
So the what I use for tools to communicate with my coworkers internally, it's Slack. So the Slack calls are super easy, and we are all lazy now. So, and there's no excuse, because you just have to open the screen, and then you just click on the call button, and then the call just pops up. So it's very
sorry, did you give someone a heads up before you call them, or you just call them? It could be a dumb question, but it's
but I do both, because sometimes I just don't have time to wait. So I'm just gonna call. But with like reoccurring scrums and all of that, they know their time. But usually you know, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to call you in 2 minutes. Or if I'm too late, not too lazy, but if I don't have time to write, I'm going to call you in 2 minutes and I need an answer right now, I will call them right away.
Okay.
And that kind of also brings, you know, accountability, because they know that I can call them at any time and they have to be right by the computer to answer within 5 rings.
Okay, within 5 rings, good. Now, has it happened that someone goes MIA? Because like, okay, because we're not used to working remotely, because our business model is everyone works in the office. So has it happened that, you know, someone is missing an action for like a half hour, an hour, or is everyone pretty much engaged?
I would say that 98% of people are engaged. It has happened to me like a few times where I'm like, why isn't it answering my call? But there was like an excuse behind it, or if they know that they will not be at their station, they will say, hey V, I'm not going to be available for the next 30 minutes. So
oh, good.
I know. Yeah. So that's how we keep each other accountable as well. So that the communication works really well that way.
Okay, so you in communicating internally with, let's say, the 40. I know you don't communicate with everyone and you know manage everyone, but the people that you do manage, is it so? It's basically all on Slack, video calls, type of thing.
Yeah, very rare occasions that, you know, if you don't answer me on Slack, I will text you, because everyone has their phone. And it's really like, I will only do this if I like, my client always comes first, right? And if I need an answer right now, I'll do anything to get that answer.
Okay.
But, you know, usually, you know, we've kind of established that at the beginning of the quarantine that we would be using Slack. So I do respect that. But in very rare occasions, you know, I have sent a Slack here and there and a text here and there. Hey, can you help me with this? Or
okay. Yeah. How would you compare, before we get on to, because I'm curious about communicating with clients as well, but how would you compare like week 1 of quarantine to this week? Is this week 5 or week 6? Whatever.
I have 1 week ahead. So I don't know how many weeks, but I remember that I started to work from home a week before everyone because I was sick with a really bad flu.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I think we're with week 6.
Okay,
so,
week 6. So how would you compare week 1 to week 6 now, or even week 5, the evolution? Are people just as energetic in it? Because I remember the first week it was trendy, like, working from home, posting selfies of our workstations, and everyone was like so excited. How is it now for the staff?
You kind of just described it very well just then. Like the first week, everyone was really receptive. Hey, how are you doing? How are you coping with all this? Okay, you're set up, la la. Now that everyone is set up, the only time that you will hear from me really is, okay, what's next for the client, you know, or your next assignment is this one. So I must say that we are very blessed because, you know, all of our devs are super devoted and they, you know, they're really, they know what they have to do. However, I feel like, you know, some people that I'm speaking to a little less, they're kind of pushed to the side. So this morning I actually, and I know that's not necessarily my job, but I kind of went, you know, talk to the people that I don't really have, like, that I don't talk a lot, like daily, let's say, or even weekly. And I just went to kind of send like a little message to those people this morning and say, hey, how you doing? And by the way, how's your project going? You know, so just.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Yeah. And they were super happy to hear from me, and I was happy to hear from them as well. So it was great.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what about, because I know in the office, client calls. Now let's talk about client calls. So I know in the office, well, direct, you know, just with yourself and a client, I guess there's not a big change, right? You'll probably do it on Zoom. But I know in the office, we have our little Zoom, our little conference rooms. We've got 3 of them dedicated for video calls with clients and prospects. So you just grab a developer and he or she's in the seat beside you. So how are you working it out now? When you, let's say you have to talk to a prospective client in an hour with a developer or 2, how are you coordinating that internally?
That's always been a challenge for me because I don't really like to take their devs out of their focus zone. So it's always like, okay, it's very strategic. Okay, so this person is about done, or this person's under a deadline, or this person has a little bit more wiggle room. And then after, I'm going to have some choices of devs. And then after I'm going, okay, with the experience and the technologies that they work with and how they can bring more value to the conversation and to the client. So, and then I will go like an hour before and say, hey, can you come on a call with prospect clients? And they will usually say yes. So no one has never said no to me before. So
No, yeah, because I think it's a little bit of a change for the person too to get out. But so do you use Zoom in that scenario?
Yes, I will always use Zoom. Super easy to use. And I mean, we have the ability to record the calls also. So if we, have questions or we don't remember a certain detail, we can easily go back to that video and just get that piece of information.
Oh, so you record the Zoom conversations then?
Yes. Our clients that are, used to work with us know that we are recording the calls, but usually with new clients, I do bring it up. And I explained the same thing that I just did. It's just for their own good. So it's really because another thing is that I really do focus on details. So I really want to make sure that all this very valuable information is recorded somewhere. Because I mean, I do write notes down also, but I can't write everything, So
okay.
Yeah.
So how do you keep track of everything? Because you got a lot of things going on. Do you use like a notepad? Do you use Google Calendar? Like, walk us through your process. Everyone has a different process. Most of them don't work.
Yeah.
If you go to the bookstore, the time planning and project managing section is massive, right? So what's your solution?
It's really funny because every time that I start a new job, I always say, this time I'm going to go digital. I'm going to have my to-do list on my Google Calendar, and it's going to be, but I always go back to the good old notebook. So that kind of looks like this. There is nothing better. There's nothing better than scratching something off your list. So, and I do it by, using a highlighter. So, okay, I know that this is done. And the ones that, are not done just yet, they're not highlighted. And next to each task, I will associate it to a number. So I will do 1 to sometimes up to 200 per week. And then every week I start again in number 1. And then after, what happens though, is that I have multiple notebooks like this because I have things that haven't been scratched on this one. But that's just the best way for me to keep track of everything. I use a lot of, my calendar. If I tell a client I will call you on Friday, I put that in my calendar on the Friday to give me that reminder. Because sometimes, the client will say, hey, can we just have a chat in 1 month? I will, it's easier that way to kind of put the pin a month later digitally. But it's the only thing really that is working for me. And I've tried so many things. I've tried Trello, I've tried Monday.com, I've tried, there's nothing as good as a good old notebook.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So you don't transcribe anything from the notebook into the calendar unless it's something that you can't basically finish today.
Yeah.
Or like tomorrow type of thing. And then if it's a little bit more in the distant future, you stick it on your calendar, but everything else stays in the notebook. Wow.
Yeah.
And you understand your writing. So you're talking to a client, you're jotting stuff down, you understand all of that?
Yeah, I really do. And it's it's very funny because the confinement, I was working on my laptop, but then now that I'm just like stationary, because at the office, as you said, I'm always going to dev number 1, dev number 2, dev number 3. So I'm just like always walking all day long in the office. but now I'm just stationary. So I can always have my notebook and just, write it down. So that's going to be a challenge when we go back to the office to bring my notebook, since I will have my laptop, my notebook, my, highlighters and all of that, but I'll make it happen because I really find that this method is the best for me.
Okay, great. So I've gotten a lot of messages from staff talking about, can't wait to go back to the office. It's funny, even the ones that are, always kind of are proponents of working from home are now getting to the point where they can't take it anymore. So, but I don't know if that's also related to the fact that they can't go out and, have a beer at night. So it's probably, compounding it. How much do you miss the office? Number one.
Yep.
And what is like the main challenge you think you faced in these past 5 or 6 weeks? And it could be anything. It could be missing your mom. It could be your annoying your nice annoying boyfriend. It could be tools. Like so. Tell me.
The first one is how much I miss the office. It's really funny because on Monday morning, I nearly put it on the Slack channel, but I got too busy and I kind of didn't write it. But Monday was the first time that I was like, wow, I miss my people. Like, I'm not someone that really get like that miss people very, very easily. So for me, because the past week was really hard. We had there was a lot of stress with work also. So it was just like, oh my God. I started to miss people last week, and especially this Monday, kicking off a new week without having my people around me. I really felt that. And another reason, that kind of just leads to the challenges is that most of the time, when I'll be talking to someone, not to everyone, but to a lot of people, is when you need to vent, or you only talk about the negative and what goes wrong. When I'm in the office, I have my coffee machine conversation that's going to provide me some valuable piece of information for my project. That's kind of like informal talk. And then we're going to be like, hey, yes, what you did yesterday was awesome. You delivered on time. Good job. So, there's this interaction and this motivation that I can do just like by talking to a dev 30 seconds. Now it's more like, it's not the same. It's great to receive like a little message, because I always do that. I will always say, hey, good job on this. You've done a great job. Client's super happy. And that's how I motivate people. But then sometimes, it's not, the reality is it's not always, nice and pink and, rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes it's hard, and we need to have hard conversation and be like, hey, what happened here? Like, I'm not really happy with this. Why did you? So it's harder to have those harder conversations with people. And there's not this, feeling of, I can't really be empathetic, or like, I can be like, but just, it's not the same thing as if I was in front of them. And just to say, the feelings aren't interpreted the same. So that's what I miss. I miss that human connection, and just, so I just feel sometimes that big challenge is, when I talk to you sometimes, Tony, it's just like, I don't say, hey, Tony, so this project goes really well. This project, like, everything is going great. What I'm going to say usually is like, Tony, we have a problem, and that's what happened for the past like 2 weeks. Every time that we were talking to each other, it was just negative stuff. And it was really hard to celebrate those little wins, like, when we sign a new client, and I'm like, hey, the client just signed, and you're like, oh yes, this is awesome. We don't have it. It's harder because now I'm just talking to you and it's negative. And that's really hard for me to have those conversations with you, because you're busy with your own stuff. But so it's just, and it's not only with you, it's with other people also. So that's one of the really big challenge.
That's a great point, because when you're in the office together in person and crossing each other, like whether it's in a break room or whatever, that's when the good news sharing comes out. but I don't think that you're really going to reach out and say, hey, Tony, can we have a call in an hour? I want to talk to you about something, and then just give me some good news. And because you'll probably think you're wasting my time or something. As opposed to when you need to speak to someone because it's a serious reason. Yeah, that's a great point. That's another, you know what? That's another great reason for being at the office.
True.
Yeah, that's it. So, as far as major challenges, do you feel that some people on the team are handling it better than others? Like, do you feel that there's a time when you're talking to someone and you're like, man, this guy is really suffering? Like, for example, I'm not suffering. Like, working from home, I miss everybody, but the actual, like, getting up in the morning and just like walking a few feet to my kitchen, and you know, and I can see that we both kind of take care of our appearance still.
The rare ones.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't understand is you're talking to some people sometimes and they're like, their hair is like this and their beard, and I'm like, okay, I understand you're working from home, but do you have a bathroom and a shower and a mirror at home? I think we all do, but it's kind of weird. I think it's kind of the roughing it sort of attitude. But
yeah, and also people that just don't dress up necessarily either because they're working from home.
Yeah, that's it. I guess they don't do video conferences, but do you feel like, and go percentage wise, is there a percentage of your team members that you see on a regular basis that are kind of having a harder time than others? Are others thriving in this environment? Like, speak a little bit to that if you can.
There are many. Oh, I'll be really honest. I always am.
Okay.
So we're not, gonna lie to each other. We do work in the tech industry, so lots of geeks. So some of them have been waiting for this all their lives, to stay at home and game and just, work from home. So these guys, they're living their best lives. Even the guys that, however, that I know that on their free time, they will do programming. Yeah. They're starting to feel it. Some of them don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they live alone, so they really start feeling pretty lonely. And even me, I am not lonely, and I feel like it's hard to stay at home and always looking at the same walls. So I would say at the moment it's kind of 50-50. Like, it's just and it's breaking my heart because I have developed like great relationships with all of our devs, and some of them will come to me and they trust me enough to be like, yeah, today is hard. Like, today is hard. Like, and I try to do my best and just reaching out to them. Sometimes I reached out to Steve and say, hey, this guy needs a little bit more TLC today, and he's gonna take care of it. So that's good. Yeah, so we're all in this together, and I mean, what's breaking my heart is that there's so much that I can do when I'm at home. Like some of them call me mom. They call me mom. Like, I'm 29 years old. Like, and so I have we have a great chemistry, all of us together, and it's just very hard knowing that some of them are suffering and I can't do anything for them. They just need a hug. Yeah. So yeah, that's a big challenge.
It is such a strange and crazy time. But I appreciate so much that you're there for the team. That's like really awesome. That's I couldn't ask for anything better. That's really great.
Thank you.
That's great. So about 50%. So half of your staff you see from time to time struggling, which is normal, I think we all have our good days and bad days. And I think it's great that you recognize it and then you call it out, and Steve can maybe do something. Like, I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, if I read the Slack message correctly, everyone's getting delivered some chicken dinner. Is that what's happening?
Yes, that's gotta be great. Yeah. And then I called. Okay, this is funny. but I called my mom and I told her, and she was like, oh, she was like, that would have been so much fun if you could have eaten all together. And I'm like, yeah, but no, like I don't know. Perhaps we should do like a big Zoom call or something. I don't know. So I know some have kids. It may be more difficult, but perhaps we could do like a big family dinner.
That's a good idea, actually. I saw an event like that a couple of days ago. A friend of mine organized it. So yeah, maybe we'll do something like that. Where's your mom? Is she in Montreal?
No, well, yeah, she's like in the outskirts of Montreal. It's about an hour away from here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah.
Cool. So I know now when we all get back to the office, there's going to be changes, right? So do you have anything in mind as to what you would possibly change? Like, like I have in my mind, like, okay, when I get back to the office, I'm going to talk to the people more. I'm going to go visit clients more. There's all of that stuff. Do you have anything front of mind that you're planning?
I don't have anything yet, but I know I will, because what the confinement has given me is kind of the time to think on how I can improve myself as a technical account manager, and how we can do better for our clients, and how can I be better with the devs. And I, did a big step back of like, okay, so that we had problems here, that works, and all of that. So I know that the thing is, we don't really know when we're going to get back to the office yet. So in all transparency, I haven't thought about it yet, but I know that I will. But there's some things that we're working that, will still apply, the daily communication, perhaps just more talking to the people even more. So that will be that would be a challenge.
The staff members or clients talking more?
And talking to the devs, because it's insane the information that you can get out of them.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
on like the clients they're working for, their projects, or
Yeah. Sometimes they're just flying on their own, and they have like they're working, and that's a reality also, that I don't have this luxury working from home. Is sometimes I'll just have this gut feeling that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go see that person. Yesterday they weren't going great, but then I'm like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, now that you're asking, I'm having this major roadblock. If I would have not gone to see them, I would have never found out about it. So I don't have this, this energy where I can be like, hey, I haven't seen this guy in a while. I'm going to go talk to him, So talking to the people more is definitely on my list.
Awesome. Yeah, I find that programmers kind of keep a lot in. They're definitely a different breed of person when they're working. Like honestly, there's some programmers that I just don't understand. I'm like, how can this person sit there all day and just work and work and work? I guess it must be the adrenaline of the code, or the adrenaline of getting something done that drives them. And for me, if I'm editing an agreement document for an hour, I'm done. I need to take a break. They're definitely a special breed of person. What do you think? Last question. I think this is probably going to be one of my last questions, but what do you think the reaction would be if there's a slow return to normal, as opposed to, hey, we found a vaccine, everyone can go to work on Monday as per normal, no more social distancing? Like, okay, that's probably a fantasy world, but how do you feel the reaction? First of all, how will your reaction be? Because I'm super interested in you personally too, because you're a millennial, you're successful, you're hardworking, energetic. Like, so it's important. I find it a little bit fascinating. So how do you feel your reaction would be if they say, okay, we don't have a vaccine yet, but things seem to be getting a little bit better. You all can go back to the office if you like, keeping social distancing and all that weirdness. How do you feel? Do you feel that you're ready to embark into that world? Or you would rather just let me work from home until until they call the all clear 100%? How do you feel about
It's a great question
that? Mm,
because I have to be super vulnerable to say it. But
yeah, be honest and vulnerable.
yeah, yeah. I really want. I'd love. I don't know if it's courage, but the thing with this virus, it's that you can be a carrier without knowing it and propagating it without knowing it, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm really really scared about. I'm and some young and healthy people, have passed because they have contracted the virus, probably most likely because they had underlying health issues, and God
Mhm.
bless them. But um, I'm extremely scared because I'm healthy, I'm young, and perhaps I could contract it and give it to people without knowing about it. My mom has a very fragile health, so I would hate to just go see her and then like just giving it to her, because the reality is I don't know what would happen. But the same thing goes if my boyfriend starts go back to to his normal life, and he has to he sees his clients face to face, and he brings it home, and I don't know, I'm definitely gonna get it. But I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, because it's so easy to contract it. But it's either, I feel like it's either we all make the same, confinement until the end, or we don't, and this thing will just stay in our lives every day. I don't know what the right answer is. There's just so many questions and there's so many unknowns. So
Yeah,
I'll take it by day, I guess.
it's a good point, because also if they do say, and I'm talking about the government. If the government turns around and says, okay, on this date you can go back to your offices, and we don't have a vaccine, like we don't have this all figured out, but of course everyone's thinking about the economy. You can go back to your offices and maintain the social distancing,
Mm-hmm.
awkwardness. Um, I'm not sure that I would make it compulsory for our company, because I know that a lot of people, judging from the way that everyone was acting before we were told to self-confine, a lot of people were nervous. A lot of, employees were coming up to me and saying, "Hey, Tony, what are we doing? Like, are we going to start working from home? Because this is getting serious." So it might be, even if the government calls all clear, sort of. I'm not sure that everyone's going to want to come in, and I kind of don't. I kind of don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think we're really blessed to be in our industry where we're able to work from home, as
Mm-hmm.
long as our clients keep maintaining, and they are actually economically able to continue running their businesses. So it's a massive circle that we have to get through, but so far so good.
Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
And and that's a big thing that the confinement has taught me, and I think has taught a lot of people, is to really focus on the little things and just to really positive about going back to basics. And I think that us as a society will grow much stronger, and we'll be a little bit more grateful as to what is given to us.
Mhm.
And going back to basics for me is just being grateful, just to wake up, to be healthy, to be able to work, just the little things that we take for granted every day. I think I truly hope that everyone will be a little bit more grateful about everything, because we are truly blessed. Yeah.
Absolutely, and of course we're talking about a situation of people who are stressed and could be a little bit depressed, but they actually have jobs, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you could have a neighbor right now who's completely out of a job, and they have a completely different reality and a completely different reason to be stressed, and to perhaps look at us and say, yeah, well, at least you guys are working, right? And it's the same thing with someone who has a virus who's in ICU now. They're not thinking of anything else other than survival. So, you know, everyone has different levels of you know, things they're going through. But yeah, I agree. Being grateful, you can't be grateful and stressed at the same time. You can only experience one emotion at a time. And if you can experience gratitude, then that's the way to go. Vee, you're awesome. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I want to really thank you for being so great, being such a great technical account manager, project coordinator, mentor, mom, all of that stuff that you are. You're really great. And that's the reason why I wanted to have you on today, because I'm saying, man, she's like just kicking butt. I got to pick her brain and find out how she's making it happen. So I really appreciate this time you spent, and continue kicking butt, and say hi to your mom for me.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Thank you so much, Tony. It was a pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.